My name is Sienna Hart. I'm 27 years old, and the night I realized my boyfriend would always choose his friend group over me didn't begin with screaming. It began with me standing in our kitchen, holding 2 concert tickets in one hand and a reservation confirmation in the other, still stupid enough to believe effort meant something. If you had looked at us from the outside back then, you would have thought we were one of those couples slowly building toward a life together. Stable apartment, split bills, shared groceries, weekend routines, his hoodie draped over the back of a chair, my coffee mug always in the sink because I was forever forgetting to rinse it before work. We lived in a 2-bedroom in Riverside, $3,600 a month total, $1,800 each, and on paper, it all looked balanced. That was the word I kept using in my head. Balanced. Fair. Adult. I worked as a fire safety inspector for the city, which meant my days were structured, methodical, and full of rules designed to stop disasters before they started. I liked that kind of work. I liked systems. I liked when things made sense. I liked the comfort of knowing where exits were, where risks were hiding, what needed to be fixed before it turned into something catastrophic. Which is almost funny now, because somehow I could identify a faulty suppression system in under 3 minutes, but it took me nearly 2 years to admit I was living inside a relationship that had been burning quietly the whole time. My boyfriend, Nathan, was 25. He worked as a graphic designer for a startup downtown, made roughly what I did, and for a long time I told myself that meant we were equals. We split everything 50-50. Rent, utilities, groceries, streaming subscriptions, even random Target runs, where we'd end up arguing over whether we really needed more storage bins. I thought that kind of shared life meant we were serious. I thought it meant we were heading somewhere. Marriage eventually. Maybe kids. A house with a yard. A dog. Real things. But what I didn't understand soon enough was that I wasn't building a future with just Nathan. I was in a relationship with Nathan and the entire gravitational force of the core. That's what they called themselves. No irony. No embarrassment. Just the core. Like they were some kind of sacred institution nobody was allowed to question. There were 4 of them in that permanent orbit around him. Brittany, Brandon, Ivy, and Claire. Claire was Nathan's ex-girlfriend, which should have been strange on its own, but in their world it was treated like proof of how evolved and emotionally mature they all were. They'd all been friends since college. 7 years of shared traditions, shared phrases, shared group chats, shared opinions about everybody else's lives. They operated less like friends and more like a committee. Everything required group awareness, group approval, group inclusion. Their schedules were coordinated weeks ahead. There were spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets. Monday trivia, Wednesday climbing, Friday movie nights, birthday dinners, pre-game nights, recovery brunches, spontaneous brewery hangouts that somehow still involve 6 people and a scheduling poll. The group chat never stopped. 300 messages a day, easily. Nathan's phone buzzed at breakfast, during movies, in the car, in bed, while I was talking, while we were eating, while we were halfway through conversations that mattered. Sometimes it lit up at 3 in the morning because Claire had some dramatic update or coal-like energy had somehow been reborn inside someone else. In our version, that person was Brittany, always gathering social information like a crow collecting shiny trash, always making somebody else's mess sound entertaining. I watched Nathan check that group chat in places that should have made him ashamed. During dinner with my parents, at the DMV while I sat beside him, waiting for my number to be called. Once, during my uncle's memorial service, while my mother was crying 3 pews ahead of us, Nathan tilted his phone toward himself because Ivy needed immediate input about some woman Brandon had matched with on Hinge. That should have told me everything. Instead, I explained it away. He's distracted. He doesn't mean it. It's just how they are. That became the soundtrack of our relationship. It's just how they are. And because it was just how they were, everything in my life started getting bent around them. 2 months before everything ended, my older sister got married in Santa Barbara. I was a bridesmaid. Nathan was supposed to come with me as my +1. My family liked him. My dad especially had always been warm with him, always asked about his job, always made sure Nathan had a beer in hand before he sat down at family barbecues. But that same weekend, the Corps got festival tickets. Nathan left Thursday and stayed through Sunday. He sent me photos from the festival while I was helping my sister pin her veil in place. Photos of him covered in paint. Photos of Brittany with a drink in each hand. Photos of Claire laughing with her face tipped toward the sun like the whole weekend had been designed just for them. Nathan did show up eventually. Late. Hungover. Barely holding himself together. He stayed at the wedding reception for maybe 90 minutes before telling me he was exhausted and going back to the hotel. My sister, still in her dress, asked me quietly in the bathroom if everything was okay between us. I remember forcing a smile and saying he was just tired. What I meant was, I am humiliated, and I don't know how to explain this without sounding pathetic. Then there was my dad. A few weeks after that wedding, he had a heart procedure and stayed overnight in the hospital. Nothing catastrophic, thank God, but serious enough that I was scared. Serious enough that I wanted the man I loved to sit with me in that sterile room and squeeze my hand and remind me everything would be okay. Nathan said he couldn't come because it was movie night. Movie night. The Corps was doing an extended fantasy marathon and he couldn't bail last minute because everyone was counting on him. I still remember staring at him when he said that. Not yelling, not crying, just staring because some part of my brain genuinely couldn't process the sentence. My father was in recovery after cardiac ablation, and Nathan was talking to me like his attendance at a themed movie night carried moral weight. He kissed my forehead before he left and told me to keep him updated. As if that made it better. As if concern outsourced through text counted as support. But if Nathan needed something from me, I was expected to move. 3 months ago, he called me at 1:30 in the morning from downtown because Claire was too drunk to drive and the rideshare prices were surging and could I please come get them? Not him. Them. I drove 20 minutes in the middle of the night, still half asleep, hair tied in a knot, hoodie thrown over pajamas. And when they got in the car, Nathan barely even thanked me. The entire ride home was just rehashed bar drama and fragments of arguments between people I didn't even like. I drove. They performed. That was the pattern. And somehow, every time I tried to talk about it, Nathan found a way to make me feel unreasonable. I'd tell him I needed more one-on-one time. He'd say I was asking him to abandon people who had been there long before me. I'd say I didn't want to compete with his social calendar. He'd say love didn't mean ownership. I'd say I wanted to feel chosen sometimes. He'd say I was making healthy friendships sound like a threat. And slowly, subtly, I started censoring my own needs before I even spoke them out loud. Then came our anniversary. 2 years. Saturday. I had planned it a month in advance because I already knew Nathan's social life required military-level coordination. I made reservations at Morello's, where we had our first date. I bought concert tickets because a band he loved was finally in town. I even found this beautiful vintage camera at an antique store he'd stopped in front of 3 different times and pretended not to want. I told him 3 weeks ahead, not 3 days, not casually, 3 full weeks. I wanted the date protected, locked in, claimed. Thursday night, I found him on the couch, scrolling through Instagram stories from the Corps at some brewery, one ankle hooked over the opposite knee, completely relaxed. I stood there holding my phone and said, "Hey, just confirming Saturday. Reservations at 7, concert at 9. The second the words left my mouth, his face changed. It was small, but I saw it. That little drop. That flash of remembering something he hoped wouldn't collide. "Oh," he said, "that's Claire's birthday pregame." I actually laughed at first. Not because it was funny, because sometimes your body mistakes disbelief for humor. "Okay," I said, "so can they do Friday or Sunday?" He sat up straighter. "No, Saturday's the only night everyone can do." I stared at him. "Our anniversary is Saturday." I know. The way he said it made my stomach turn. Not apologetic. Not torn. Just inconvenienced. I asked, "You knew that? I told you 3 weeks ago." He rubbed the back of his neck and started listing reasons, one after another, like he was presenting a case to a board. "Brandon has an exam Sunday. Brittany's been working doubles. Ivy already moved something for this. Claire's really been going through it, and everyone finally has the same night free." I remember standing so still my hands started to ache around my phone. Then I said very quietly, "It's our anniversary. Once a year. You can see them any other time." And that was the moment everything split open. Nathan leaned back against the couch, crossed his arms, and looked at me like I was the one being unfair. "Love can wait," he said. "Friendship can't." The room went silent. I thought maybe he would hear himself and correct it. He didn't. He kept going. "They were here before you, Sienna, and they'll be here after. Deal with it. There are sentences that don't just hurt. They rearrange something inside you." That was one of them. Because it wasn't just cruel. It was casual, like he was stating weather. Like the hierarchy had always been obvious, and I was embarrassing myself by pretending otherwise. I looked at him, and suddenly every moment I had excused came rushing back at once. My sister's wedding, my father in the hospital, the late-night pickup, the constant group chat, the memorial service, the way every plan with him had always been one emergency text away from becoming optional. Not him. Me. I was optional. He stood then, maybe realizing too late how cold he sounded, and softened his tone just enough to make it worse. "Don't make this dramatic," he said. It's just one night. I remember swallowing hard and thinking, no, it's not one night. It's the truth. Because the truth was never that Nathan had friends. The truth was that I had spent 2 years loving a man who only knew how to love me when it was convenient for everyone else. And standing there in our living room, with anniversary reservations in my phone and a gift hidden in the closet he no longer deserved, I felt something in me go eerily calm. Not healed. Not okay. Just clear. For the first time in a long time, I stopped trying to explain myself to him in a way he might finally understand. I just looked at him and realized that if I stayed, I would be volunteering to come second for the rest of my life. And that thought scared me more than losing him did. The strange thing about finally deciding to leave someone is how quiet it feels. There was no dramatic speech that night, no slammed doors, no crying in the bathroom while he knocked on the other side asking me to just talk. Nathan went out anyway. Claire's birthday pregame, because of course he did. He kissed my cheek on his way out like everything was normal, like we hadn't just cracked something open that couldn't be sealed again. "Don't stay up," he said casually, already checking his phone as it buzzed again. I didn't answer. I just stood there in the hallway, listening to the door close behind him, and for a long time, I didn't move. Because once you finally see the truth of something, you can't unsee it. And the truth was simple. I wasn't asking for too much. I was asking the wrong person. The next morning, I didn't bring it up. Not because I forgave him, but because I was done negotiating for basic respect. Instead, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, coffee untouched beside me, and started looking at apartments. 1 bedroom, 15 minutes away. Something small, something mine. I didn't call my friends to vent, didn't text my sister, didn't ask for advice, because I already knew what they would say. And for the first time, I didn't need anyone to confirm it. I needed to act on it. My friend Owen texted me that afternoon. "You good?" I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Yeah, just thinking." He called me 10 seconds later. "You don't sound like you're just thinking," he said. "You sound like you're about to do something." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. "I think I'm done," I said. There was a pause, not surprised, just steady. "About time," Owen said quietly. "You've been giving her chances for a year." That word again. Chances. Like this had ever been a fair game. "She wants me to choose between her and them," I added, even though I knew it wasn't true. Owen didn't hesitate. "No," he said. "She wants you to accept always coming last." That landed harder than I expected, because it was exactly right. He asked if I was going to give Nathan an ultimatum. I almost laughed. "I'm tired of begging someone to pick me," I said. And that was it. Decision made. No countdown. No warning. Just a quiet line crossed. I found the apartment that night. Clean. Simple. A little too white in that way new places are. But it felt like space. Like oxygen. I filled out the application before I could overthink it. Left it sitting in my drafts for 20 minutes. Then hit submit. 2 days later, I got approved. What came next wasn't dramatic. It was methodical. Calculated. Almost clinical. Nathan's life made it easy. Tuesday, dinner with Brittany. Wednesday, climbing. Thursday, rooftop bar. Claire wanted to try. Friday, movie night. Saturday, brunch and shopping. He was barely home, and when he was distracted. Half present, always checking his phone. So I started small. A bag of clothes. A stack of books. My work files. Things he wouldn't notice. Things that didn't leave obvious gaps. Nathan had always been messy. His stuff everywhere. Shoes in the hallway. Jackets over chairs. Random cables tangled on the floor. He didn't track space the way I did. Didn't notice absence the way I did. So every night, when he was out laughing with the core, I packed pieces of my life into boxes and carried them out quietly. No music. No lights. Just the soft sound of tape sealing cardboard. By day 6, half my things were gone. By day 10, my new apartment had furniture. Plates. A coffee maker. My side of the closet filled again. It started to look like a life, while our old place just looked slightly less cluttered, which Nathan probably appreciated. Friday night, around 1 in the morning, I was in the bedroom sealing another box when I heard the front door unlock. Keys. A laugh. His voice. "They're finally wrapping up," he called out casually. I froze for a second. Not because I was scared, because I hadn't planned for him to be early. His footsteps moved through the apartment, then stopped. Silence. Then, "Sienna?" Something sharper in his voice now. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. I just finished taping the box. Set it aside, and waited. I heard him moving faster now. Kitchen, bathroom, office, each room adding another layer of confusion. Then he reached the bedroom door. He stopped in the doorway, and I watched his eyes move. Closet, half empty. Nightstand, cleared. Desk, gone. My laptop already packed. "Are you moving out?" His voice wasn't angry, Not yet. Just disoriented. Like the world had shifted without asking his permission. I reached into my bag and handed him the envelope I had written days ago. 2 pages. Carefully worded. Not cruel. Just honest. He took it slowly. Opened it. Read it once. Fast. Then again. Slower. And when he looked up, his expression had changed. Not to understanding. To disbelief. You're seriously leaving me because I have friends? There it was. Distilled down into something small enough for him to dismiss. I shook my head. No. Then what is this? He waved the letter slightly. This reads like you want me to choose. I want you to care about me too. He stared at me like I had said something unreasonable. Of course I care about you. It doesn't feel like it. That flicker again. Annoyance. Defensiveness. You can't expect me to ditch everyone every time you want attention. That word. Attention. Like I was asking for something shallow. Like I wasn't asking for partnership. I asked for one night, I said. Our anniversary. That I planned 3 weeks ago. He threw his hands up. This is ridiculous, Sienna. You're throwing away 2 years because you can't handle me having a life. I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. And something inside me settled even deeper. Because he believed it. He genuinely believed this was about him having friends. I thought I knew who you were, I said quietly. I thought you wanted to build something with me. I do, he shot back. Just not if it means cutting everyone off. I never asked you to cut them off. Then what are you asking? I held his gaze. To make space for me. He shook his head immediately. No, you're asking me to prioritize you over people who have been there for years. And there it was again. The hierarchy. Out loud. Unapologetic. We went in circles after that. Same arguments. Different wording. 20 minutes of him defending something I was no longer trying to change. Because at some point during that conversation, I realized something important. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was who he was. And I had finally stopped trying to rewrite it. So eventually, I just lifted my hands slightly and said, I'm done. That made him pause. Done arguing, he asked, or done with us? I didn't hesitate. Both. That hit him. I saw it. A shift. A crack. He followed me then, room to room, grabbing at pieces of the past like they could anchor me. Remember that concert where we ran into Brittany and Brandon? The dinner we cooked for everyone? That beach trip with the core? I stopped walking, turned to him, and for the first time I said it out loud. Do you have any memories of just us? He opened his mouth, then closed it, because he couldn't find one fast enough. And that silence said everything. I'll come back this weekend while you're at Ivy's pool party, I said. Get the rest of my things. He didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at me like I was slipping out of a story he hadn't finished writing. I walked to the kitchen, set my key on the counter, looked around once, at the couch, the hallway, the life I had tried to build here. Then I walked out. Saturday morning, I was unpacking dishes in my new kitchen when my phone started ringing. Nathan. Again. And again. And again. When I didn't answer, the text started. Long paragraphs. We need to talk like adults. You're being immature. Relationships require communication. I read one. Then muted the thread. Set my phone down. And kept unpacking. By noon, the messages changed. Different names. Different tones. Same message. The core had entered the conversation. And suddenly my breakup was no longer just mine. The first message came from Brittany. Of course it did. Long. Structured. Almost rehearsed. Sienna, I think you're making a huge mistake. Nathan is devastated. You're not just walking away from him. You're breaking apart something bigger. We're all hurting right now. I read it twice. Not because it mattered. Because I was trying to understand how my breakup had somehow become a group emergency. Then came Brandon. Shorter. More reasonable. Hey, I get that things got heated, but maybe we can all sit down and talk this through? No need to make permanent decisions based on one argument. Then Ivy. A voice message. Soft. Breathy. Full of pauses like each word had been curated. I don't know the full story, but energy doesn't lie, Sienna. And right now, the energy feels really heavy. I'm sending you light. I actually closed my eyes when I heard that. Because somehow that one felt worse than the others. Not direct. Not honest. Just performative. And then finally, Nathan's ex, Claire. You don't get to just abandon him like this. You know how important we all are to each other. If you loved him, you wouldn't be doing this. I stared at that message for a long time, because there was something deeply unsettling about being told how to love someone. By the woman who used to date him and never really left. By Sunday, it escalated. The language shifted. Subtly at first, then not so subtly. You're isolating him. You're making him choose. This is controlling behavior. You need to unpack why you need to be the center of someone's life. That one almost made me laugh, because the irony was so sharp it hurt. I wasn't asking to be the center. I was asking not to be invisible. I didn't reply to any of them. Not once. Not out of weakness. Out of clarity. Because engaging would only validate the idea that they were part of the relationship. And they weren't. Monday evening, I found out they disagreed. I had just gotten home. Around 7. Parking lot still warm from the day. I stepped out of my car, keys in hand, already thinking about what I needed to unpack next. And then I saw them. All 5 of them. Standing outside my building like they were waiting for a show to start. Nathan at the front. Brittany slightly to his right. Brandon with his arms crossed. Ivy already holding her phone. Claire watching me like she knew exactly how this would play out. For a second, I just stood there because it didn't feel real. It felt staged, like I had walked into something already in progress. Nathan started talking before I even reached the door. Loud. Projecting. We need to settle this now. You don't get to just disappear. There were people nearby. Neighbors. Someone walking a dog. A couple coming out of the building behind them. Of course there were. They had picked the setting carefully. Public enough. Unavoidable. Performative. I kept walking. There's nothing to settle, I said calmly. I made my decision. I reached for the door handle. Nathan's voice cracked slightly. You can't just walk away from 2 years like it meant nothing. That's not fair. I turned, slowly, because I wasn't going to run. Not anymore. Fair, I said quietly. Fair was our anniversary. Fair was my sister's wedding. Fair was my dad in the hospital. I held his gaze. I chose me. That's what's unfair to you. That landed. I saw it. But before he could respond, Brandon stepped forward. Dude, you're being selfish. I looked at him. Why are you involved? He blinked, like the question itself hadn't occurred to him. We all care about Nathan, he said. You're hurting him. You're hurting all of us. I let that sit for a second, then said, what exactly did I do to hurt people I barely know? That's when it hit me. Really hit me. In their minds, I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was a member of something. And leaving him wasn't a breakup. It was a betrayal of the group. The most codependent thing I had ever experienced. Brittany stepped in next. Of course, voice calm, measured, like she was moderating a panel. Sienna, we're trying to create a safe space for communication. I almost smiled, because the phrase sounded so polished, so practiced, like she had said it before. This isn't a safe space, I said. This is an ambush. Ivy's phone shifted slightly, angle adjusted. Still recording. Claire folded her arms, watching, always watching. Nathan just stood there, letting them speak for him, and that told me everything I needed to know. You have 30 seconds to leave, I said. Nobody moved, not even a step back. So I turned, walked inside, and called security. Exactly like I said I would. They argued when security came. Of course they did. Tried to explain, tried to reframe, tried to make it sound like I was being unreasonable. But eventually, they left. Not quietly. Nathan turned back one last time before the door closed. This isn't over, he said. And for the first time since everything started, I believed him. The messages slowed after that, then stopped. For about a week. I almost thought it was done. I should have known better. It didn't come back as confrontation. It came back as narrative. Subtle at first, then coordinated. I heard from Owen that Brandon had been talking. At the gym. Casually. Just checking in. Conversations that somehow turned into, Sienna's been acting really controlling. Nathan's been dealing with a lot. She kind of isolated him from everyone. No specifics, no direct accusations. Just enough to plant doubt. Then social media. Ivy posted first. A photo of her and Nathan sitting together, both looking serious. Caption, healing era. No names, no context. But everyone who knew us knew. Brittany followed. Longer post, multiple slides. Talking about recognizing controlling behavior. How love shouldn't feel like restriction. How partners who get upset when you spend time with friends are showing red flags. She tagged Nathan. Not me. She didn't have to. The implication did the work. Claire handled it differently. Private messages. Reaching out to mutual acquaintances. Just concerned conversations. Framing everything like she was reluctantly sharing information. Like she didn't want to speak badly about me, but felt obligated to tell the truth. And through all of it, I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't care. Because I did. But because reacting too early would make me look exactly like what they were trying to paint me as. Defensive. Unstable. Guilty. So instead, I started documenting everything. Screenshots, timestamps, posts, messages, secondhand accounts from people who heard things. I created a file, organized it by date, by person, by claim, what could be proven false, what was just implication. I treated it like a case, because in a way, it was. Then 3 weeks after I moved out, they made a mistake, a big one. I was at work, mid-inspection. Walking through a restaurant kitchen, checking suppression systems, noting violations, when my phone buzzed. Fraud alert. $847 charged to my credit card. I frowned. That card wasn't in my wallet. Hadn't been for a while. Because during the relationship, I had let Nathan keep it for emergencies, car trouble, medical situations, anything urgent. It had been used exactly once in 2 years. For a tow that I told him to use it for. I had forgotten he still had it. Until that moment, I stepped outside the restaurant, pulled up the transaction details. Date, time, location, an expensive Italian place near the waterfront. And suddenly, it clicked. That same night, I had seen posts from the core, all dressed up, smiling, glasses raised, captioned like some emotional support dinner for Nathan. I stared at the charge again. $847. 5 people, drinks, dinner, desserts, a celebration, funded by me. I called the restaurant, spoke to the manager, gave the date, the amount. There was a pause while he checked. Then, yes ma'am, party of 5, reservation under Nathan's name. My grip tightened around the phone. Do you know how the bill was paid? Yes, card ending in... He read the last 4 digits. My card. No hesitation? No ma'am, he presented it when the check came. I hung up, stood there in the parking lot, and felt something shift. Not anger, not even hurt, something colder, clearer. Because this wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a decision. He had chosen to use my card, after I left, after everything. While sitting at a table with the same people who were calling me controlling, I called my bank, disputed the charge immediately, explained everything. They froze the transaction, issued a new card, opened an investigation. Then I sent one message, the only message I had sent him since I walked out. Using my credit card without permission is fraud. The charge has been disputed and reported. Any further contact will go through official channels only. I didn't wait for a reply. I blocked his number. That should have ended it. For normal people, it would have. But with them, it became something else. Within hours, Brittany posted again. Financial abuse doesn't end when the relationship does. Cutting someone off from resources they relied on is a form of control. Weaponizing money is a red flag. The comments flooded in. Support. Validation. Strangers agreeing with her version of events. Calling me manipulative. Saying Nathan deserved better. I read it once, then took a screenshot and added it to the file. Because now, they weren't just lying. They were getting comfortable doing it. And people like that always push too far eventually. They always need one more moment, one more performance, one more win. I just had to wait long enough for them to make a mistake they couldn't explain away. The thing about people who build their lives around attention is that silence confuses them. It doesn't just frustrate them, it destabilizes them. Because if there's no reaction, there's no narrative to control. And the core needed a narrative. So when I didn't defend myself, when I didn't post, when I didn't engage, they escalated. A week after the credit card incident, I went back to the old apartment. Not to relive anything, just to finish what I started. Boxes, leftover things, the last physical traces of a life I had already mentally walked away from. The landlord was there for a routine inspection. We made small talk at first. Keys, timeline, lease transition. Then he said something casually. Oh, Nathan stopped by yesterday. I froze. What do you mean? He shrugged. Said he forgot some mail. I let him in. Something cold slid down my spine. He's not on the lease anymore. The landlord frowned slightly. Yeah, I realized that after. He didn't stay long. Just grabbed some envelopes and left. I didn't even say anything for a second. I just walked into the kitchen, looked at the counter where I had left my mail in a neat stack. It was thinner now. Too thin. I flipped through what remained. Junk. Ads. Nothing important. Because the important things were gone. My DMV renewal notice. A credit card statement. Documents from work about benefits enrollment. Not random. Not accidental. Selected. That was the moment it stopped being messy. Stopped being emotional. Stopped being about a breakup. Because taking someone's mail, that crosses into something else. I called the landlord back into the room. Explained everything calmly. Very calmly. Because anger wouldn't help. Facts would. He no longer lives here, I said. He's not on the lease. He entered without permission and took my mail. That last part made his expression change. Mail theft. Even he knew what that meant. I'll have the locks changed today, he said immediately. And he did. That afternoon. New key. Only copy. I followed it with a formal email. Short. Direct. Sent through the landlord. Nathan was no longer allowed on the property. Any further entry would be considered trespassing. No emotion. No discussion. Just a boundary. With consequences attached. Of course, they tried to spin that too. Claire posted something vague about retaliation tactics. About people abusing power after a breakup. Left out the part where he had taken my mail. left out the fact that he wasn't legally allowed to be there. Context didn't serve them, so they removed it. But something else started happening around that time. Something they didn't expect. Cracks. Small at first, then louder. Owen called me one night. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Try me." "Brandon's pulling away." I leaned back on my couch, phone pressed to my ear. "What do you mean?" "He's been showing up at the gym with this girl, Emma. They've been working out together, leaving together, and apparently—" Owen paused. "Apparently she gave him an ultimatum." That word again. Ultimatum. But this time, it wasn't mine. "She told him she's not dating someone who needs 4 other people involved in every decision," Owen continued. "Told him if he wants something real, he needs boundaries." I let that sink in. Slowly. "And he's listening?" I asked. "Yeah," Owen said. "He's skipping events, not answering the group chat right away, actually prioritizing her." A small, quiet realization settled in my chest. The exact thing I had asked for was suddenly reasonable, just not when it came from me. Nathan didn't take it well. According to Owen, there was a confrontation at the gym. Nathan asking Brandon why he was changing, why he was choosing Emma over the core. And Brandon told him to grow up. Told him he was allowed to have a relationship that didn't need group approval. The first crack. Not long after that, things shifted faster. Brittany got promoted, moved to Seattle. Ivy and Cole started dating, officially, which meant their attention turned inward. Less group focus, more couple dynamics. Less core, more fractures. And Nathan spiraled. Harder, trying to hold everything together. Blaming me. According to Owen, he had started saying things like, "She poisoned all of you. Everyone's pulling a Sienna now." Like I had started a disease. Like choosing a partner was contagious. I still didn't respond. Still didn't post. Still didn't engage. I just kept documenting. Because now I could see it clearly. They weren't just reacting. They were trying to control the story. And if they couldn't provoke me into reacting, they would create situations where I had no choice. 6 weeks after I moved out, they tried again. I was meeting Owen for lunch at a coffee shop near his gym. Noon. Simple. Public. Safe, or so I thought. I walked in and saw them immediately. Nathan, Brittany back in town, Brandon, Ivy, all seated at a corner table, waiting, watching. Owen texted me 10 minutes earlier saying he'd be late. At the time, I hadn't thought anything of it. Now, it felt convenient. Too convenient. Brandon stood first. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. "Can we talk for a minute?" I didn't move. Didn't step closer. Didn't sit. "Adults don't bring an audience to a conversation," I said. Brittany stood next. "We're not here to attack you," she said smoothly. "We just think Nathan deserves a real conversation instead of being blocked and shut out." I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't concern. This was strategy. "I don't owe anyone a performance," I said. Nathan's voice cut in then, tighter than I remembered. "You can't just walk away like I meant nothing." I met his eyes. "You didn't act like I meant something." I turned toward the counter, ordered coffee. To go, because I wasn't staying. Behind me, I could hear them regrouping, adjusting, shifting tone, trying again. "He's not ready for a mature conversation," Brittany said loudly. "He won't even look at me," Nathan added, voice breaking just enough to sound convincing. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when I saw it. Ivy's phone, held low, angle tilted upward, recording. "Of course," I smiled. "Just a little. Make sure you get my good side," I said. She lowered it slightly, but didn't stop recording. I grabbed my coffee when it was called, walked past them, didn't stop, didn't argue, didn't defend, just left. Outside, I took a breath, long, steady, because I understood something now. This wasn't about closure. This wasn't about conversation. This was content. They wanted footage, proof, a clip they could edit, shape, control. And they got it, just not the way they expected. A week later, Ivy posted a video. 15 seconds. Edited. Tight. Clean. It showed me saying, "I don't owe anyone a performance." Then walking away while Nathan's voice cracked behind me. Caption. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." The comments were immediate. Cold. Heartless. Cruel. All directed at me. Because context had been removed. Again. I watched it once. Then took a screenshot. Added it to the file. And then something unexpected happened. I got a message from someone I didn't know. Profile name, Ethan Carter. Mutual connections with Brittany. The message was simple. "I think you're dealing with the same people I did. I have proof." I stared at it for a long moment, then replied, "What kind of proof?" He sent screenshots, and everything shifted. Group chat messages between Brittany, Ivy, and Nathan from before the coffee shop. Planning it. "We need to corner her somewhere public so she can't just leave. If she walks away, we still win. It makes her look cold. I'll record everything. Another screenshot. Brittany to Nathan. Use her card for dinner. She owes you after what she did. Nathan. Are you sure? Brittany. She abandoned you. Stop thinking like a victim. Then transcripts. Voice notes. Brittany coaching Nathan. Word for word. Telling him to say, "You're isolating me." Telling him to call me controlling. Telling him to flip every argument. I sat there on my couch. Phone in my hand. Heart oddly calm. Because this was it. It hadn't just been a toxic group. It had been scripted, engineered, directed. Ethan sent one more message. She did this to me 2 years ago. Same pattern. I saved everything. I saved everything he sent. Backed it up. Organized it. Labeled it. Because now, it wasn't just my word against theirs. Now I had proof. I could have posted it immediately. Ended it. Exposed everything. But I didn't. Because people like this don't stop until they think they're winning. And I knew they weren't done yet. So I waited. And I let them believe they still controlled the story. The moment they finally lost control wasn't dramatic at first. It started like any normal night. 2 months after the breakup, I got invited to an engagement party. A friend of Owen's, Chris, was proposing to his girlfriend Amanda, and they were hosting a big celebration at this industrial-style venue downtown. Exposed brick, string lights, open bar, about 80 people. The kind of place where everything feels warm and intentional. The kind of place where drama doesn't belong. By then, my life had settled. Not perfectly, not magically, but peacefully. And a big part of that peace was Liam. I met him through work. He was an architect who worked with the city on compliance projects, and we kept running into each other at inspection sites. At first, it was just small talk, then coffee, then longer conversations that didn't feel like they were competing with anything. He listened, really listened, not half present, not checking his phone every 30 seconds. Just there. When I told him about Nathan, about the core, about everything that had happened, I expected hesitation, concern, maybe even distance. Instead, he just nodded slowly and said, "Sounds like you were the only one acting like an adult in that situation." No drama, no overreaction, just clarity. The night of the party, he picked me up. Charcoal suit, simple, sharp. He looked like someone who didn't need attention to feel important. I wore a dark green dress, nothing flashy, just me. When we arrived, Owen found us first, pulled me aside quietly. "They're here." I didn't need to ask who. "How many?" I asked. "All of them." Of course. I glanced across the room, and there they were. Nathan, Brittany, Ivy, Claire, Brandon, clustered together near the back like they were still holding on to something that no longer existed. Only now, it looked smaller, looser, like a structure already starting to collapse. Amanda came over a few minutes later, smiling, glowing in that way people do when they're genuinely happy. "Sienna," she said warmly, "I'm really glad you came." She leaned in slightly, voice dropping just enough. "If anything weird happens tonight, let me handle it." I nodded, appreciative, because something in her tone told me she already knew what they were capable of. For the first hour, nothing happened. Liam and I talked, laughed, met new people, danced a little. It felt normal, and that alone felt like a victory. Then around 9:30, I saw Nathan stand. He said something to the others. They all stood with him, phones already in hand. Of course. They walked toward us as a unit, and just like that, the performance began. "Sienna." Nathan's voice cut through the music, loud enough to turn heads. "We need to talk, right now." I didn't stand, didn't react. I just looked at him, calm. "No," I said. His jaw tightened. "You don't get to just move on like nothing happened." I took a slow sip of my drink. I already moved on, that's why I'm smiling. That hit hard. I saw it in his face. That flicker of something he couldn't control. Then his eyes shifted to Liam. "So that's it?" he said. "You replaced me already?" Liam didn't even look at him. He just stayed beside me, relaxed, unbothered. And that silence was louder than anything Nathan could have said. "This isn't a conversation," Liam said calmly after a moment. "It's a setup." Nathan's face flushed. "You don't even know what happened." Liam finally looked at him. "You're here with an audience, Sylvain," he said. "That tells me everything I need to know." Brittany stepped in. Phone raised. Recording. "Nathan deserves closure," she said smoothly. "He deserves to understand why you abandoned him." I stood up then. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just steady. "Truth doesn't need a camera," I said. Then I looked at Nathan. "Do you want to explain everything?" I asked. "Or should I?" He hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. "Tell them about our anniversary," I continued. "Tell them about my sister's wedding, my dad in the hospital." His expression started to shift. "Tell them about using my credit card," I added. "Or about how Brittany coached you on what to say." That's when the panic hit. Real. Visible. How do you... he started, but I didn't let him finish. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was directing. Tell them about the coffee shop, I said. About planning to corner me. About recording me so you could edit it later. The room had gone quieter now. People were watching. Not casually. Not curiously. Seriously. And then, Cole's energy, reborn in Claire's impulsive move. Claire lifted her phone higher. Started recording more openly. Like doubling down would fix it. Go ahead, I said calmly. Just make sure you include everything this time. That's when Amanda stepped in. Fast. Controlled. What's going on here? Nathan turned towards her immediately. She won't even talk to me. Amanda cut him off with a single look. Cold. Sharp. This is my engagement party, she said. Not your content. Brittany tried to pivot. We were invited. Amanda didn't even look at her. Then you can leave, she said. Right now. There was a pause. A long one. Because for the first time, they weren't controlling the environment. Security stepped closer. Subtle, but firm. Nathan looked at me one last time. Desperate. You're really going to do this? He asked. I held his gaze. I already did. And then, Claire made the mistake. The one mistake that ended everything. She said it out loud, clear enough for everyone to hear. You're not allowed to move on before he feels better. The room went silent. Then, someone laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. Then another. Because what she said was so absurd, so entitled, it broke the illusion completely. Security escorted them out. No yelling. No drama. Just removal. Like a scene being cut from a film that didn't need it anymore. The party slowly returned to life. Music resumed. People talked again. But something had shifted. Not in the room. In them. The next morning, everything exploded. Ethan posted it. All of it. The screenshots. The messages. The plans. The coaching. The credit card conversation. The edited video versus the full context. Everything. It spread fast. Because truth, when it finally lands, hits harder than any narrative. People saw it. Connected it. Understood it. Brandon posted an apology. Public. Clear. He admitted he had enabled it. Said he was stepping away. Brittany disappeared. Private account. Post deleted. Gone. Ivy tried to spin it. Said things were taken out of context. No one believed her. Claire stopped posting altogether. Because there was nothing left to control. And Nathan? Silence. Complete. A week later, I sent a formal notice. Cease and desist. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just legal. The harassment stopped immediately. 3 months later, I saw him again. Grocery store. Produce section. Of all places. He looked smaller. Not physically. Just less certain. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I hesitated. Then nodded once. Make it quick. He swallowed. I get it now, he said. What you were asking for. I didn't respond. I just let him continue. I see what a real relationship looks like now, he added. I didn't give you that. There it was. Too late, but real. I'm sorry, he said. I held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. I believe you. And I did. But belief doesn't rebuild something that's already been buried. You look happy, he said. I glanced at my cart, at the life I had built without him. I am. He nodded slowly. You deserve that. So do you, I said. And then I walked away. That was the last time I saw him. 6 months later, I heard he was dating someone new. Trying. Learning. Maybe even changing. Good for him. As for me, Liam and I got a dog. We're planning a trip to Japan. We argue sometimes. We compromise. We choose each other. Every day. Without an audience. Without a vote. Without a group chat deciding what matters. And sometimes, I think about those 2 years. About the anniversary. About being told love could wait. Then I remember the moment I walked away. Not angry. Not broken. Just clear. And I realize that was the moment everything actually began.